Infowars.com. It's actually the first article there, and the headline is Ebola outbreak confirmed in the U.S. or in U.S. Why are they bringing Ebola patients into Western countries? So, like I was saying before, I was talking to my wife about this, and at the time, she really wasn't too worried about it because she knows, like most people, that at least right now, one, it isn't or wasn't airborne, and two, the cases that we had here in the States were individuals that were from Africa, that actually lived in Africa, that flew in from the States. It wasn't something that had been transferred from one human to another in the United States until now. So before she wasn't too worried about it, but now, I was kind of hesitant because she tends to be a little bit of a worrier. So I was hesitant to let her know, but at the same time, that would be kind of hypocritical of me, because it's the same reason why I do this show, is because I think it's important to inform people. Even if you're frightened by the information, you should still receive the information, because how are you going to know to protect yourself if you don't know that something's coming?
Very true. Man, this is a tough thing to hit on, because there's so much misinformation and little information out there at the same time. We don't know where this is going to go, and at the root of the matter, my big question is, why wasn't it invited in? If it's something we knew, like Ellis Island, for those of you that don't know history very well, was the entryway to the United States, and there was a reason that it was established that way, so that when people came in, they could be screened, because the old world was a little more intelligent when it came to just letting people in. Like, any one of you would not just walk up to somebody, or most of you, I should say, would not just walk up to somebody and kiss them in the mouth. You would wait to get to know that person, see what they're like, see if they have colds, see if they have cold sores, any number of things before you engage in any kind of like social swap. So Ellis Island was kind of that staging point where people would be staged to see if they were healthy. They would be screened by doctors, and that's because the old mentality knew to look out for those things. Now we can't control the borders. We can screen every single United States citizen. We can store the information off every single phone, every single text message, and we can spy on our citizens, but we can't screen people coming in on airports from outside the country. You don't have to harass them, but a simple screening. And we have plenty of funds. I mean, we can drop bombs all over Syria, destroying major Syrian cities.
They take enough of our taxes. It definitely shouldn't be an excuse of lack of finances.
Because one cluster of bombs, that was just dropped on Syria to pay for like doctors at every major airport. So I'm just confused as to where the justification.
The bottom line is, the sad truth is that they don't want to test. They don't want to test because this is another tool in their toolbox of tools. For the analogy that I said before, you don't build a house with one tool. This is another one of their tools that they'll be using to control the population.
You're making conspiracy theorists look right now. I just want you to know that.
Little ears are perking up, are they?
No, man, and we're not wearing tinfoil hats. Me especially. I'm not,
Yeah, you can see for yourself now.
It hurts my dome. But, no, it's like, what are you thinking? Man, why not go back to the stuff that works? You don't need any new programs. You don't even need any new taxes. We had the process right. Ellis Island, you don't just enter in. Close off a border. For Pete's sake, it's for the best interest of everybody. Unless what you're trying to do is make everybody susceptible to whatever you let in.
Right. Well, not only susceptible, but just the fear alone. They don't need everybody to be susceptible to catching it. They just need everybody to be afraid of catching it.
I think you're going to accomplish that.
I was listening earlier, to an episode of Alex Jones, and he had a doctor on that was talking, and he went to a conference with medical doctors and so on. Dr. Edward Group, which I'd love to try to get him on the show one day if possible. But he was talking about, he made an excellent point about, as far as fear, just the fear alone of this potential outbreak. what he pointed to was the fear, drive, and quarantine, because that would have to naturally have to be the next step.
Yeah.
If this did start to become an outbreak, right now it's just a couple of people, but I mean, as you can see, it grows pretty quickly. It grew from 1 to 4 within a week and a half, 2 weeks. So eventually they're going to start quarantining people, and just really drive that fear. And even if they don't quarantine people, the panic and mass hysteria generated through mainstream media will keep people from wanting to go to work. Force people to want to stay inside their homes and not have contact with the outside world, which would slow down production. You're talking about food delivery. You're talking about waste management. Basically, everything that runs to keep our society running smooth would come to a screeching halt. And that's when you have mass panic, mass hysteria, looting, rioting.
It's also a great distraction to keep people from focusing on what's actually happening.
Like in Syria?
Smokescreen. Yeah. We're on ISIS and Ebola, and it's like there's this ever-changing boogeyman at all times. And I'm not saying ISIS doesn't exist, because I read people's blogging, and they go back and forth and battle about, so you're saying that ISIS doesn't exist and we shouldn't fear it. It's like, look, no, you shouldn't fear it, number one, because being a coward never solved anything.
Amen.
But you have to deal with things as it comes. But ISIS came into power. Let's just pretend that it's an all-Islamic group of radicals. Who was holding it at bay? Saddam Hussein? Yeah, let me tell you something. Things were a lot better over there when Saddam Hussein was in power, before we hung him and blew his city up, who had nothing to do with 9/11.
Right. So, not that he was not that he was a prize, right?
Yeah, I'm not saying
he was a dictator, obviously, but apples and oranges. I mean, you have to, if you, especially, I love Democrats should really, Democrats and liberals should really understand if we say lesser of two evils, because they love to use that argument during the
Democrats were against invading Iraq.
Right. Yeah. Well, the hypocrisy is immeasurable and obvious and blatant and disgusting.
It was an old guy who brought that intelligence to me about the whole Iraq scenario. He's like, look at how much U.S. blood is being shed and how much Iraqi blood is being shed. He goes, do you know when Saddam was there? None of that was happening.
Right.
Iraqi blood wasn't spilling in the streets.
Right.
American blood wasn't spilling there at all.
Right.
And people were not invading that country and taking it over.
Right.
Saddam had that stuff down to a science. I'm sorry, but when we're measuring it in terms of blood and profits, it would have been better to have Saddam there. I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
I'm not pro-Saddam at all. But
no.
Why would I want your children to die for a scenario that has nothing to do with them?
Right. And I mean, look, I'm not from Iraq. You're not from Iraq, obviously.
No.
For us to opine on whether or not things are better over there, opinion-wise, I absolutely believe that it's better there. I've never spoken to an Iraqi and heard their opinion about whether or not it's better there, but it would seem logically like they would be better off, because people aren't dying by the millions. Weren't dying by the millions then. So just on a logical level, not on a... and the reason why I'm making that statement is just because I don't want it to make it seem like, obviously, we're not experts on the Middle East, so I don't want to seem like we're pretending like we are. But logically, common sense-wise, it would appear that Iraqis and everyone in that general region were better off when they had the obvious dictator, Obama. Not Obama, excuse me. Freudian slip there. Oops. The evil dictator, who's Saddam Hussein. I was going to call him Obama Hussein.
I don't know.
Power there. It was obvious. It was obvious. It was a little bit better. Again, it was the lesser of two evils
and under control.
Right.
And the scenario over there now is not stable. I do get to talk to people that have a little bit of inside say-so. And, these people believe in their mission. They believe in bringing freedom and democracy. But at what cost? When, you're losing more than you're gaining by this imagery. And that had nothing to do with 9/11. And that was the justification. You threatened my daddy. So let's go shed American blood and Iraqi blood. Not the right thing to do. So rewinding back into the ISIS, I'm not saying they don't exist, but they were created. Where were they before? We never talked about them before. Nobody talked about them before.
Just suddenly on the scene.
Obama can't even pronounce their name right. He's like, ISIL. Whatever. It rhymes with missile. Maybe it's easy for him to remember. but all of a sudden there's a new boogeyman. All of us that are paying attention said the same thing. We're like, just wait. Now that we've gotten the last boogeyman, just wait. A new one's going to appear and distract everybody.
Yep.
And boom.
And it's the way it's always happened. It's the way it's always happened. It was, first it was, the communists.
They actually were a threat.
Vietnam and Russia.
That was a waste of war and blood. But you know what? I do know people that were in Vietnam, and they described it, and they described how the Americans saved them. And, I can't speak intimately on that level, only by the stories that I've heard from both American soldiers who are very disturbed from what went on over there, and by actually Vietnamese people who were like, the Americans were their saviors. And it's such a major conflict.
Sure. Well, here's the thing: you're always going to have that
two sides
to a certain degree, right? You're going to always have it. Of course, any conflict that anyone gets involved in, you're going to have a certain level of the populace that'll be grateful for what they did, but at what cost? At what cost to their country as a whole? What more importantly, and quite frankly, what cost to us?
Yep.
That's why I believe in the libertarian view first and foremost, which is non-interventionism unless it's a direct imminent threat to our country, to our homeland. Stay out of it.
Well, what if I'm in fear for my life? Shouldn't I just shoot first so that I live?
Yes.
And that's where we're at in America.
Right.
I was in fear for my life, so what did the person do? They made me fear for my life.
Right.
But how do they make you fear for your life? I'm pretty sure I felt threatened and in fear and in danger, so I shot, and now they're not alive to say anything.
Right. Right. And that goes for the police too. But we're getting off on a rant here. Let's
always get off on a rant.
Yeah, we do, don't we?
Yeah, but that's what we're doing in Syria. Better to kill them over there than here. But we just blew up a major city full of women and children. Dude, if go look on like Live Leak and these other places, man, we didn't just like drop bombs on some remote area full of terrorists. We destroyed like this major city full of normal people. Well, they may not be normal to us, and maybe that's the justification in American mindset.
Those brown people that have strange cultures.
Yeah, they wear a rag on their heads, so they don't feel pain. Their children, when they blow up, it's different than ours. No, I can't. No.
So disgusting.
It is, dude. It kills me inside because, like, how do you justify that? What empathy is putting yourself in someone else's shoes. And, I don't have to agree with your culture or what you look like or any of that. I'm not saying that. But these children didn't do anything. They're not necessarily going to grow up to be terrorists. Like, whoever brainwashed anybody into thinking that is sick.
Right.
Some of these people grow up to be magnificent doctors, great nurses, poets, artists, and we just disposed them with a few bombs. Right. Actually, a lot of bombs. You got to see the footage.
And that's what really pisses me off more than anything else is the liberal hypocrisy of, they were all pushing so hard for Obama, he's going to be Mr. Hope and Change. Mr. Hope and Change, he's going to change everything.
Nobel Peace.
And Nobel Peace Prize. Oh, God, didn't even get me started.
With a bomb.
And, yeah, and, I mean, and Nobel Peace Prize before he had an opportunity to even show one way or the other. There's no logic. But my point is the level of hypocrisy. And now that it's their guy, nobody's saying anything. And their arguments except the only things that they say are in defense, which are this, and they use the same arguments that Republicans were using in defending Bush when he was attacking Iraq.
What's that?
Oh, what are you gonna do? What when people that don't like that hate our freedoms and they're over there killing people, and eventually, if you let them get out of control, and eventually they'll make their way here. All these things which may or may not be legitimate arguments, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that they're the same arguments that Bush and the Republicans were using.
The liberals hate it.
That the liberals would beat them over the head about. And now that it's their guy, now those arguments are completely legitimate.
And it's sad because all of you that are Democratic and